What's going on, everybody? I'm back with you, Jared Fausnaught, Conor Reilly. We've got Minicast number 13. Funny timing. We've got Friday the 13th, literally tomorrow. So crazy timing, but I think the stars are aligned for us to have a good conversation today and get into a really interesting topic. We're going to be touching on how to close a deal literally in 1 week. A lot of people want to know how to do this. We're experiencing tons of competition in the market these days. You know, it's not just issues around competition, but there's different competitors in the lending world. Oftentimes deals fall out if you've got a bad lender, which they exist all over the place. So this is really just kind of a guide on what to do, and we're going to get into it pretty deep today. So before we do move any further, if you can, really will help us out, please, I implore you, go hit the like button and subscribe to get more content. It helps us out with the algorithm and allows you to get notifications when we put out new content. So help our little humble mini cast grow. Appreciate
Absolutely. It. Yeah, thank you guys.
Yep. And getting into this, so just talking about, how to attack this, closing in 1 week, this is a pretty monumental task. I mean, we know most of the lenders out there, on average, you're usually looking at 10, 14 days. There's a lot of larger national lenders that are taking up to 30 days. And, while it's not any kind of relation to mortgage lending where you might be doing 45, 60 days on a close. I just closed on a primary residence, and I mean, that took like 4 months. I don't even know how they can stay in business and do that. But, for us, average is probably 10 days at WCP. We've done closings. I would say our fastest is maybe 24 to 48 hours. So we've done some pretty crazy turnaround times. I'd say 5 to 7 days, like in about a week, if you include the weekend, is a really fast turnaround time.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that comes down to not only the lender, but all the other pieces in place, the title company, the investor themselves, and the documents, and the appraiser, getting all of those things in order. So being organized is definitely the biggest thing to have straightened out right away in order to make a quick closing happening, because oftentimes those quick closings are what is going to be able to win you a deal. Just about 2 weeks ago, I had a client call me. We were evaluating a deal. Everything looked good. I said, all right, let's move forward with this. And actually the listing agent called me and was like, so tell me about your process, blah, blah, blah. We got into it. And we had talked, and the seller was deciding between my client's offer and someone else's. And I was like, all right, well, if we can actually get it done in 7 days, can we get this signed today? He was like, absolutely. He would prefer his money faster anyway. The offers were just about equal, but that additional, I think it was like 10 days less. That additional 10 days less is what was the deciding factor in getting a deal closed.
Yeah, we see that all the time. I mean, I'm literally dealing with that right now. I won't name names of the competitor, but we had a past borrower who ended up picking up a partner on his new deal, and that person had just happened to have a long-term relationship with another lender, a national lender, and so they were going in that direction. They had already ordered the appraisal. And it had a drop dead date of this week. And, we stepped in, we figured out the appraisal piece of it, and, we turned around and got it closed, within, I think it was 5 days. So it happens all the time. I mean, that's just the nature of it, especially when you have partners, and this is such a relationship business. So, we want to make a really big impact. And any lender that you're working with, whether it's us or anybody else, this is an opportunity for them to shine and get it done. So along the lines of organization, absolutely, you got to have your documents together. I would say having a file on your desktop is the biggest thing, right? Like for me and my own deals that I work on, like I want to have all of my financial documents. So all my, any LLC, articles of organization, operating agreements, taxes, personal financial statements, all that stuff should live on your desktop somewhere in the digital world. It should, maybe you should have it in a folder if you're organized and have a folder in your office or something. But have it in multiple places that you can access easily, update it regularly. Like if you have to go back and you're working, you're updating your taxes or you're updating whatever in your financials, like, and you want to close the deal fast, that's probably going to be a barrier for you to get it done. Be organized. And the biggest question is, are you working with a lender you've worked with before, or are you working with somebody new? If you're working with somebody new, they're not going to have a file, like your file built out in their system. Most lenders have a CRM or some kind of way to store your documents. And hopefully it's, secured and encrypted like ours. But they need to store that so that if you come back and do multiple deals, it's way faster every single time. If you are working with them for the first time, it's going to mean more legwork on your part to get them all of that. So are you working with somebody you've worked before, or are they new? Know what their checklist is, right? For us, we have a really easy to follow checklist. It breaks down into corporate docs, personal docs, and project docs. Very, very simple kind of way to think about it. And just as a quick plug, please reach out, DM us, send us a message. And we'll add it in the description below. But we'll link to it, but we want to get you our checklist in advance. So if you're ever interested if you find a deal and you want to work with us, look at this as a resource. We'll get that to you. So just shoot us a DM. We'll get that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell new clients all the time, like, even if you're not looking at a deal right now, let's begin on that checklist, at their leisure, because it's going to come down to a time where you have to make a quick move on a property, and we'd rather have 50 to 75% of the checklist complete. So now we're just looking at the project documents. It makes our life so much easier. It makes your life so much easier. And also, whoever is signing on the contract, whether it's direct to seller or wholesaler, for your lender to be able to say, yeah, we already almost have a complete file, that's a big decision maker in moving forward with the project.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to play a big role. Some of this is communication, right? I mean, we talked about organization heavy, but the other piece of this is communication. And one of the biggest variables that I see in people's success as investors, as fix and flippers, as buy and hold type investors, a lot of it comes down to communication with your financiers, whether they're equity people or whether they're debt, depending on what your capital stack looks like. So if you're not communicating with them and giving them heads up that you're even looking, like they may be able to kind of prep things on the back end for you if they know you're looking. Some of that can mean working with a lender who can get you a proof of funds letter, and which we offer. And again, that's something that we can provide if you want to reach out. Reach out, get a proof of funds letter, ping us a message, whenever you need one, and we'll write one for a specific address, and then we'll know that it's coming. But I get every situation's not like that. So just try to over communicate. Going a little bit more in the weeds, some of the things that would potentially hold up a closing within a week would be things like insurance. We generally see as a practice, and I don't know why it is. Maybe it's just because it's so painful, and it really is just such a pain to deal with. The insurance component. Like, I don't know. I think about my auto insurance or like my home insurance or whatever it is, and it's just like you got to call. You're on hold, maybe depending on if you have a rep you've worked with before. It's like a whole process. They got to quote you and everything. So it can be a little bit of a pain, and they're a third-party vendor, so you're on their schedule. And I've seen so many insurance scenarios hold up closings because people wait till the end. Do your insurance first, don't have them bind it, right? Because they need to be able to ensure from the day you close. And if you think you're going to close on a Thursday and it ends up closing on a Friday, they're going to have to update that. So get it ready, get the title, get the binder ready to go. You could put it on the HUD depending on the lender, or pay it in advance, but I would put it on the HUD, and then just reach back out to the insurance person and say, okay, go ahead and bind it and get it done when you know the date you're closing. Credit too, right? Like if you know you have issues with credit, you should probably tell your lender up front. If you're going to try to close it in a week, if there's issues around that, maybe your lender can get an exception. Maybe they can work with you, but I guarantee if it's anything like us, we have certain policies and procedures we have to go through on our operations team in order to be able to get any type of exceptions. And that doesn't happen in 1 hour, right? So we can't have that at the last minute, and any other lender is going to say the same thing. So look out for that.
Yeah, that actually relates to, I think we talked about this in a podcast previously, but just being up front early on with as much information as possible makes everyone's job easier and faster in terms of decision making. Also, if you're getting a prelim quote, it's got to be off of the information that you're providing and or that the investor is providing. And if that information isn't accurate, things may change getting to the closing table, and that may adjust the ability to be able to do the deal or the profit of the deal. So as a team, from the lender aspect, the contractor aspect in terms of what is the construction budget, title company, all of those things, let's just get all the cards on the table up front so we can get this thing to closing quickly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like just to kind of dovetail on that, specifically about title companies, because we did, just going a little deeper there. I think that's probably the single biggest factor, in addition to your organization, your communication with your lender, whether you've done a deal with them or not. What are the specifics of the deal, like with credit and insurance and all of that kind of stuff, is the title company. Not every title company is made equally. And I would bet you 9 times out of 10, most lenders have a better working relationship with some title companies over others. Those title companies just get the requirements of the lender, and they don't even have to be asked to do it because they do so many transactions with that lender. They just do it automatically. And we have a couple of those organizations. This is a great time to plug Fairfield Title. We work extremely closely with Fairfield Title, and to the point where we have communication with them that we don't from other title companies. They know all of our requirements in advance, and it's just so much of a closer relationship that we can get closings done way faster because of that. So that's a perfect example. Maybe other lenders out there have a similar thing. But part of it is, when legal reviews the title commitment, right? Just to get into the weeds a little bit, there's oftentimes edits and exceptions to the title commitment that need to be removed. And if there's a title company out there that's like, I have to go back to my underwriter and get this approved or whatever, and that maybe hasn't worked with that lender before, like that's going to delay things. That could be 24 to 40 hours right there, just with back and forth with their underwriter. So you got to work with somebody that's just going to remove those exceptions right away, and don't even have to spend any time on that, and know how to format the HUD or the Alta or whatever they're using. So another thing, for the love of God, please stop sitting on contracts.
Yes,
that's the biggest thing. People, and this isn't even like closing in a week, right? I mean, that's obviously the point of this conversation, but just, PSA to everybody, so many files that we close. If we had just got the contract and known in advance further that it was closing, it wouldn't have had to even be a week, right? Like that's a point we should touch on, because oftentimes we're in this week scenario because they got it under contract. You got it under contract as an investor 30 days ago, and now you're just sending it to the lender. Maybe that's because you were shopping around. That's fine. Maybe it was because you weren't sure what your scope was going to be on the deal and you were talking with your contractor and you were trying to figure it out. That's fine, but get the contract in your lender's hand. Let them know, communicate to the earlier point, even if it changes. A lender would rather go up front. Me personally, like if I'm closing a deal, I'd rather you come back a week before closing and say, you know what, Jared, this deal needs to be, reworked because I'm going to increase the construction budget. It looks like it went up, or I just want acquisition only financing now, or whatever. Much rather know that than have you send it to me like extremely late in the game, just because you were trying to hold and figure all that out in advance.
Absolutely, because it's easier to adjust, and it goes back to a point we made earlier. All the third-party vendors that are involved, appraisals, title companies, all those things need to be working simultaneously. It's very easy for a lender to send new numbers to a title company, and get those numbers updated on the HUD or the title commitment, whatever, than it is to send over a brand new title request and then have to have a day or two, possibly 3 days for them to even get the title work back, because then it's already been being reviewed. The exceptions have already been being removed. Adjustments are faster than brand new work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the best people, the most organized people and the investors that are just on a different level, and that they themselves are driving the transaction. When I get a client that comes to us and says, hey, I want to do a deal, I've already got the title work. I reached out to a title company that we work with regularly. I already got the full title binder. Here it is. So title work is mostly complete. I've already put in, I've reached out to one of your trusted appraisers. I've already got insurance in the works. Like when somebody comes to me like that, they're driving the transaction, and I know that it's going to get closed. Even if I'm not involved. I wish every transaction was like that. Most of them, as the lender, we're driving it forward, and we're trying to get it to the closing table. I would just encourage you to figure out how to help play a part in creating pressure and pushing the process along, in other avenues as well to help, because you're more likely to get your deal closed in a week if that's what you're looking to do. So request title work in advance, as soon as you've won the contract, and be prepared to work like nights and weekends if you have to. I mean,
Absolutely.
Like the amount of people that are just kind of like come off as a little bit like, I don't know, procrastinating and lazy a little bit. It's like, are you, don't you have an EMD on the line? Like, are you about to lose $5, $10, $15, $20,000 in an EMD? And you don't want to send me your docs over fast enough? Like, what is more important in your life right now that, like, I get people have stuff going on, but it's like, this should be a priority for you. Like, I can't do everything to get the deal closed as your lender. You have to come and meet us part way.
Yep. Yeah. And if you're not sure of who to use for a quick closing on a title company, talk to the lender that you're planning on using and say, hey, if I have to do something quick, who should I send things to? That's a very easy solution right there. Then the title company can reach out to the lender, all of those things. As you mentioned, for making things a priority, it's got to be a priority for both the lender and the investor, especially if it's your first time working with that lender, because like we mentioned earlier, you're going to have a lot more documents to send over because they don't have a file on you. Whereas if it's a repeat person, there's lots of times where that lender is going to be able to drive that transaction, as Jared does generally, because we already have 75% of it. We can push things towards the finish line and then have the investor catch up to us with the remaining documents.
Yeah, really great point. We didn't really, we touched a little bit, we didn't go very deep on the appraisal side. I would reach out to us in advance if you're trying to find deals. We have relationships that we've built, and we have a list of vetted appraisers, right? Like our go-to list. These are people that we trust. We've seen their values on past deals. We've stress tested everything. in the past, they've aligned with our own internal underwriting, which we do on every file. I mean, it's great to get an appraisal, but at the end of the day, we trust our underwriting ability as well. And so reach out in advance, ask if you want to use an appraiser. Let us get that person on the list. Let's vet them in advance. Or if you want to just let us reach out to our list of reliable appraisers, we can do that. We know that they can close or turn it around very fast. Be prepared to pay rush fees, because generally getting an appraisal back within 5 days probably warrants a rush fee. They're going to have to coordinate to go out to the property. So think about access. Think about, like, is the seller going to, wholesaling it? So you got to go, is there a tenant there? All those kind of questions to get access so you can really turn it around fast. So that's a really big one. It's just make sure you're working with the right appraiser.
You actually just brought up a point outside of the appraiser world, reaching out to us early, and that we do our own underwriting. As soon as you're evaluating a deal, let your lender know, let anyone inside of WCP know, because we're going to evaluate the deal ourselves in terms of, as is ARV, does this make sense? And it might not make sense to even move forward with the deal, and that may solve everyone's issues right there. So be confident of your numbers, have an idea of what things are going to cost, but let's evaluate things very early on, because we may say, hey, this likely won't appraise, or we're doing a project down the road that is going for X amount of dollars, which means that this deal isn't going to work. That's going to be your comp. So maybe it's very early on that we decide that this isn't the one to go for.
Yeah, great point. I mean, just about looking at us as advisors. I mean, we're here to help you be profitable, and if you can tap into the knowledge and the data that we have, we can help you. We've done literally thousands of loans, more and most heavily in the DC metro area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, PA, NC, and we have a very interesting heat map. Like, we've got all this data, so we can help you have a better idea of how successful your project may be. We can run comparable analysis. We have access to all that stuff. Our loan officers do. So yeah, I mean, it may mean, in this conversation, like, how do we prevent you from having to close in 1 week? Because it's just not fun. I mean, it's just, and doing that regularly, it's just, it's a stress, big stressor, and
I enjoy it.
You like
I love it.
Just debilitating stress.
Yep.
And then to carry that over like 30, 40, 50 transactions. Yeah. Great time. No, but I mean, hey, look, it's a challenge. If we got to get it done, we're going to get it done. But, if you can avoid that, why not, right? Like, make your life less stressful. I know there's a lot of competition out there, but even most wholesalers, they're not requiring you to close in 1 week, right? Like, the speed for them is more so on the offer and getting that approved, making sure your numbers are tight and getting your offer in. And then you've got a little bit of wiggle room. Granted, you're going to put an EMD up, so you may have that at risk, but most of them are not requiring you to close in a week. So that's really good. I don't have a whole ton more. This is a relatively short one, and a short topic, obviously closing fast. So, this was something that popped into our minds the other day, and we were just like, oh, look, I feel like given what we see, like, we saw a couple of really fast turnaround files, and we were like, let's talk about this. I mean, I feel like it could be immediately helpful for people, and hopefully you never have to use any of this information, because you have longer timelines on your closings, and you're well organized, and you communicate well, and all that good stuff. But if you do find yourself in that position, I hope that this information will help you. And as always, reach out to anybody on our team. We can help you. We're here to be advisors, and we want to help you succeed and be successful, and continue growing your businesses. So again, if you can, please hit the like and subscribe button. Turn on the notifications button by hitting that bell. on YouTube, trying to grow the channel, trying to put more information, free information out there for everybody. So we really appreciate it. And we will see you on the flip side with the next Minicast 14. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.